Good morning. Welcome to the Isaac Clemens Show. Today is Thursday, December 4th. This is episode number two. If you'd like to contact the show, you may do so by emailing us at the Isaac Clemens Show at gmail.com. It's the same spelling as the Rumble podcast. And of course, please give us a follow, share the link with your friends, families, neighbors, cats, dogs, etc., if you choose. Okay. I want to set the table for something that's going to be coming up in the years ahead of us here in Teton County, Idaho. And this will be like drinking from a fire hose, admittedly, and the pun is intended there. I want to do my best by beginning to educate some people in the community at large in my own way and raise awareness on what the current situation is locally with the Teton County Fire Department. At a very high level, I am going to get into some detail. There's going to be a lot more to come on this in the coming months and years, et cetera. This is a big topic. There's a lot to digest here. Right now, in my opinion, there's a lot of half truths out there in the community. There's a lot of misconceptions about the fire department. And so today I'm going to talk about some of them. I hadn't planned on talking about this quite yet. I was planning on doing this next spring, but the cat's out of the bag. This stuff is being talked about elsewhere in the community. It's on the internet, it's on social media, it's on the dark web. I even saw a billboard in downtown LA talking about it. I do have full disclosure, some prior limited knowledge with fire department dealing, so I'm not completely out over my skis on a lot of this stuff here. So how did this all come about? Well, for the last couple of years on social media, I've been prodding the fire department when they make mention of, hey, we were at a car accident in Victor, and then 26 miles away at the Teton County, Madison County, or Fremont County boundary, there was an accident. And all of a sudden, we had two major car accidents on our hands, and we're out of staffing. And so I was prodding them and saying, well, what are we doing about this? What's the plan moving forward? What's the comp plan, if you will, for the fire department? What's the growth plan? The community is growing here, and along with it, the municipal services have to grow, whether it's snow plowing, law enforcement, the hospital, even though that's not really a municipal service, it's still in the same vein. And of course, the fire department, and along with it, EMS. So I think as a baseline, everyone over the age of six in the United States knows that if you pick up the telephone and call 911, do you even pick up a cell phone now? You unlock your cell phone, you call 911, or you blink at it now. You can blink six times in a Morse code pattern and it calls 911. We're living in good times. And if needed, a dispatcher will presumably pick up the phone. You can even text them now, and a fire truck, an ambulance, or a police vehicle shows up. But beyond that, I think for many people, it's a gray area. What happens behind the scenes? It's kind of like when you drive by the hospital, everyone knows there's doctors and nurses and maintenance staff in there, but what really goes on and how is it funded? How does it work? How does it not work? What are the needs? What are the shortfalls, etc. Um, so, in no particular order, here's some things I want you to consider and talk about as we delve headfirst into a pool with no water in it. Right now in Teton County, Idaho, there are seven firefighters per shift. We're grossly understaffed, and there's some governing agencies that are have something to say about this. There's NFPA, that's the National Fire Protection Association. That's a group of industry professionals and fire department types. There's NIOSH, there's OSHA. OSHA has something we call the two in, two out rule, which we might get to in this. And just going back a step, so I was prodding the fire department, and I struck up a conversation with the chief, Chief Mike Maltaverne, and we had some great back and forth discussion online, and I invited him to come to my home and sit down if you felt inclined to do so. And I wanted to talk. I want to support the fire department and responsible growth. I hate that word, but that's what it is with the fire department and the EMS services here. And he graciously obliged on his personal time to come, and we sat down for over 4 hours actually, and nothing was off limits as far as the questions. He answered all of my questions. It was a very eye-opening discussion. So the first question was, how many people do you have on staff? Like, how many people are in the firehouse right now? And his answer was seven. Now, that's probably taken into consideration. No one's out sick. There's no family emergency leave. There's no vacation time built into there, etc. And, you know, some of the stereotypes we have to break down is just because a fire department has a given staffing level, that doesn't mean that it's ideal. I want most people can conceptualize or picture if there's a fire in a house or a car accident, a farm accident, God forbid, a backcountry accident. You know that the thankfully now we're transitioning to red fire trucks. Fire trucks are red; they're not chartreuse green. Chartreuse green was actually for fishing lures, and then someone I think in the '60s did a safety study and said you can see green fire trucks better in the fog, and we've debunked that and turned that on its head. Thankfully, now we're back to red fire trucks. So kudos to whoever made that decision. I digress. So picture a typical house fire response. Fire truck pulls up, maybe two of them pull up, they get off. They have to take care of life safety issues first. Then they have to take care of property issues. They have to establish a water source. A fire truck can only carry 250, maybe 500 gallons of water. If you have a tanker of a few thousand gallons of water, if you don't know, that's only a few minutes of water. And when you're trying to put out a fire, most homes now are filled with things that are primarily made out of petroleum products. We have gotten away from wood furniture and wood interiors. Everything now is plastic and oil. So these fine people are showing up and they're essentially battling a miniature oil well fire. And it's very difficult to do with a limited amount of water, especially in a rural area. We don't have a great water supply situation here unless you happen to be in town. Then you have EMS responses. Say you go to there's a car accident, two cars hit each other head on. All seven of these people show up eventually because they're coming from Victor, they're coming from Driggs. You get two ambulances there. Each ambulance might have two people on it. You have a person in each car, minimum, right? Because there was a person driving, presumably, unless it was a Tesla or something. Now, it's going to take two people, an ambulance crew per car minimum to tend to these people. Now you have three people left. What are those three people doing? Maybe these people are trapped in the car. They just hit each other head on at 65 miles an hour out by Hatch's Corner. Someone's got to work on extricating these people from the car. That's two people right there. And you can only work on one car. Now you have one person left. If you don't know, it takes two people just to get some of these tools in service. They're so heavy and so cumbersome. And there's no relief coming. Our closest fire department is Jackson, somewhere in Madison County, Rexburg, maybe one of the other volunteer departments up north, Swan Valley. You're a long way from help out here if you get into a jam. So that's something to consider is just how fast seven people go, supposing that all seven show up. Now we have the EMS responsibility. A few years ago, the fire department took over EMS responsibilities from the hospital. That was a bit of a trial and tribulation. If you followed any of that, for those of you who don't know, ambulance shows up. I think most people know ambulance shows up for sick or injured person. The person gets in the ambulance and they go to the hospital. But before that happens, all of our firefighters here are also cross-trained as paramedics. And that's a big burden. And being a paramedic, you're basically a street level doctor. You're administering drugs. You are making life and death decisions. They are working underneath the guidance of a telemetry doctor. So somewhere in Teton County or maybe Madison County, wherever their doctor is, there's a doctor that they can pick up the phone or on a radio patch and say, "Hey, here's what's going on. Here's what I have. What do you think?" And the doctor will say, "Okay, given those circumstances, administer these drugs." And on the ambulance, there's a narcotics lockbox, presumably. That's how it is in most municipalities. They unlock the magic box, they get out the fancy drugs, and hopefully they can salvage you on the side of the road. That's a big burden for someone who's just a firefighter. They're not just firefighters, they're also paramedics. And whether you know it or not, most of their workload is not fire stuff, it's the EMS side of things. And thank God it's not the fire stuff. Uh, if I had my way, the fires would be down to zero here. Take another scenario. You have those seven people. You have two car accidents at the same time. Let's say one person from each car accident needs to be transported. Both of those ambulances might be driving to Idaho Falls. Maybe they're driving to Jackson. Maybe they're going beyond that to transport this person to a higher level of care. My math, we just lost four of our seven firefighters, firefighter paramedics. That's a problem. Having a properly staffed and equipped fire department to some people is a luxury. To me, it's a necessity. And in many places, it's treated like a luxury. That mindset, in my opinion, needs to change. Then we have other issues. There's a firehouse building in the city of Teutonia. It's not staffed. It's a storage building for any number of pieces of equipment and tools, whatever they have in there. But there's no staffing. So right now, it's a fire garage. It's not a firehouse. Then you get into issues like fire insurance rates. Many people don't realize your fire insurance rates are heavily influenced by the ability and equipment and staffing of your local fire department. So if you live and we're starting to see this now, California, I think State Farm's not will not do business in California anymore because of the wildfire situation. The place is a tinderbox. I don't know that staffing is as big of an issue as it is in California. It's a little bit more built out, but that's a problem. I've had this happen personally to me. You go to apply for homeowners insurance and they do a little investigation and go, oh, that's the kind of fire department you have. And it's not a dig at the fire department. It's a dig at they're limited by their staffing and their resources. That needs to change. I think if there was ever going to be an increase in the fire taxing district here, as far as how much money they're skimming off to pay for this stuff, I think a lot of that could be offset by and realized with savings in people's insurance policies. That's part of a bigger project, though. There's other little issues. Like right now, the city of Teutonia, I understand, has no impact fees. They're getting ready to build a lot of homes in Teutonia. It would be a shame if that money was not captured as Teutonia was building. We could be talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in impact fees that would go to vital resources here, road and bridge, the fire department, police department, et cetera. I like to think of the fire departments like car insurance. The fire department is an insurance policy for the community. Think of it like this. Do you want just collision coverage on your car? Do you want comprehensive? Do you want bare bones liability? And then you have people that say, oh, yeah, I'm insured. Well, what does that mean? And we have a fire department here. What does that mean? We have that fire insurance, if you will, by having a fire department. But what does that mean? An ignorant person will just say, "Oh, great, I'm insured," or "Oh, yeah, we have a fire department. I see the building in Driggs, and I see the trucks going up and down the highway, etc." A lawyer, a judge, a jury, they might have a different take on what car insurance means if there's claim or legal action. And with the fire department, you find out very quickly when they get called out just how quickly they're overwhelmed when they show up at a house fire, major car accident with multiple vehicles involved, or they're pulled in two or three different directions at the same time in the county, or half of our staffing is transporting people to 70 miles away from here. Then you throw in the weather, that's another X factor. Now, with the fire department, you there's this one of those misconceptions is how are we staffed, right? A fire department can be all volunteer, it could be all paid, or what we call career now. It could be a combination of two. Some volunteer fire departments, if you want to be a member in good standing and volunteer, you have to show up and commit to camping out at the firehouse basically for X amount of days or shifts or tours per month. So it's not, you're really just working for free at that point. And that was the model in this country. I believe Ben Franklin was the originator of the volunteer fire service eons ago. And it has changed over there because lifestyles have complicated, people's desire to risk their own life, long-term health risks, uh, for the sake of being a volunteer fireman. The nature of what fire departments do now is different. We have this terrorism threat looming over every community in this country. There's the awful active shooter situations. If you had an active shooter situation at a school here, God forbid that happens. I'm not going to go into what ifs on this. Think how quickly our fire department would be overwhelmed here and how quickly help would show up as backup here. You're going to have people transporting people in personal vehicles. It's going to be a hard show. And part of that is because we don't have a fire department that is adequately staffed. Um, the fire department doesn't just go to fires. I know the trucks say fire, the building says fire, the tax says fire on it. I like to think of them as urban problem solvers, or in this case, rural problem solvers. They go to the water rescues, they go to car accidents, they go to gas or propane leaks. They basically go to everything other than what law enforcement won't show up to. So when you call 911, the dispatcher has one of two or maybe three choices, depending where you are. Is it a fire EMS call or is it police? That's it. There is no one else coming to help you if it's an emergency that needs to be mitigated. You could throw hazmat into there too. Think about these propane tanker trucks carrying thousands and thousands of gallons of liquid petroleum down the highway here every day, up and down the highway, even more so in the winter. One of those things flips over, we got a major problem on our hands. Our emergency services are going to be overwhelmed instantly here before the call for help even goes out. Then we get into the population situation here. Some people think, oh, we're just a community of 12 or 13,000 people. And we are full-time people, even though half of them drive to Jackson every day to support their economy and make it over here. But in the winter, what do we think that population swells to on a busy ski day? Maybe 15,000 people are in the valley. In the summer, it could be 20, 30,000 people. I don't know that there's an accurate way to capture what exactly that number is. You can look at short-term rental numbers. You can look at sales numbers at retail stores. You can look at traffic studies. There's a lot of people that come in here. So we need to think it's not just 12,000 people here that the fire department's on the hook for or EMS or law enforcement. It could be double that, maybe triple that. Bear in mind how big our response area is here in Teton County for the fire department. Teton County is bigger than all five boroughs of New York City. If you've ever seen a map of, visited, been to, saw it on TV, New York City is huge. I think most people can agree on that. Teton County is bigger than that. Now, granted, a lot of it's forest space and it's farmland, et cetera. But when you're driving, your next closest help or mutual aid fire department might be 45 minutes to an hour away. So next time you're driving to Walmart to buy your groceries because you can't afford the shop here because we're paying for things like resort taxes, you might want to consider how far away from help you are. What would you do if you got into a car accident out there or there was a fire? You're a long way from help. And then throw in the weather, that time to help could be double. There's some people, well, the fire department only goes to a few fires a year. And thank God they only go to a few fires a year. Part of that is because modern building practices have limited the how many fires happen, right? We're not using cloth wrapped wire anymore. We have circuit breakers. We don't have fuses. People are a little bit more cognizant. Wood burning appliances have been modernized. We have building inspections. We have code enforcement. We have a permitting process. It's not quite the Wild West now with building construction anymore. So we need to rethink about we only go to five fires. That's only a small part of what the fire department does. And that's true across every fire department in the world. Definitely United States. I'll go as far to say as the world. EMS is dominating the call volume. Fires ebb and flow right now in some major metro areas where there's a lot of lithium ion batteries being used for e-bikes and scooters and that kind of stuff. There has been an uptick in the lithium ion battery fires. I think that we're going to see a change with that, with legislation and restrictions on how they can be built and et cetera. But so far, I haven't really seen that problem here locally. Not many people are riding around e-bikes. And if they are, they're not the kind that you buy on Amazon for $300, which is part of the battery problem. You hear people say, well, the last seven fires you guys went down to, the building burned to the ground. Again, you can't put out a roaring house fire with seven people with 250 gallons of water. Our fire department's responsibility, I have to imagine, like it is anywhere else, it's saving lives. That's it. Are the people out of the building? Then are the pets out of the building? Is the livestock saved? Can it be saved? And then it's the property. And unfortunately, because of the limited resources here and the rural aspect, it's a containment issue. Can we keep this from spreading into the neighboring wildland? Can we keep it from spreading to the neighbor's house, maybe your own outbuildings? So you can't dig at the fire department because the building burned down to the ground. That's not a reflection of the fire department. That's a reflection. If they showed up with 100 people, 10 pieces of equipment with an adequate water supply, it would have a different outcome every time. Then you look at new building construction. New building construction, you have open spaces. Take a couch fire with an electrical cord instigating it in a regular single family home, like something you'd find in Driggs. The fire is contained to the living room. The other rooms have doors on, and presumably you go to a new build in Teton County, the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, maybe a bedroom, a loft, it's all one room. You got a fire, a simple fire by 1980s standards on in that couch or a wastebasket or whatever, and now the house might take a half hour to fill up with smoke before someone driving by sees it. Maybe the people have a monitored fire alarm system. They're pretty rare here, from what I know. Um, Whereas in a smaller home, a more traditional 12, 1,500, even a 2,000 square foot home that's a little bit more compartmentalized, you have the small fire going, it presents itself a little bit quicker to people passing by. Also, new homes are built a lot tighter. So by the time the fire department gets the phone call, this fire might have been cooking in that house for a half hour, 45 minutes. The house was a goner before the fire department even got notified. Um, you hear people say they should be all volunteer. I think that ship has sailed in Teton County. When I was sitting down with the chief, I said, you got a fire in the middle of the day on a Tuesday. You make a phone call for extra help. Can you get 10 people? And he said, no. I said, can you get eight people? He said, no. I said, how many people can you get? He said five? He said, maybe three. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize it was like that. And I believe here that the quote unquote volunteer staff is actually paid on call. So there is some compensation. I'm not just showing up because I like green and red fire trucks. It's very difficult to find people here to volunteer to do this kind of things. I can't twist people's arm to show up at a pivotal county commissioner meeting and exercise their voice during the open mic period, sit in an air conditioned room for 15 minutes with 3 weeks notice. How many people do you personally know that are going to go through all the training to become not only a firefighter, but a paramedic, risk your life? Short term, long term health issues, et cetera. That's a separate topic with the stuff that fire department employees are exposed to that the general public isn't. It's a big ask to ask people to volunteer. It's 2025. We're paying. You go look at the county staffing or any of the cities at what's on their line items for budgets. You'd probably be dumbfounded some of the things that we're paying for. And now we have a recreation tax. We're going to be paying for a recreation czar. That person, I think the salary last I saw, it might be more than what our sheriff is making, and definitely more than a firefighter is making. I don't agree with that. Let's see here. Another problem with the volunteer, our entire blue collar workforce, which traditionally make up a lot of the volunteer fire department staffing, they go to Jackson every day. When they come home from Jackson after working there for 17 and a half hours, do you think that they're going to drop everything, leave their kids' soccer practice to go jump on a fire truck? I don't see it happening. And that's borne out in the numbers too, with the lack of volunteers here. Some people have concerns about the amount of the equipment that's owned by the fire district. Why do they have a tower ladder? Why do they have this? What do they need that for? We can get into what all the equipment's for, why you need a tower ladder in a town that doesn't have tall buildings. There's other reasons. It's a high point for technical rescue. A lot of ag equipment around here. How you getting someone on the top of a silo without a skyhook? You going to bring a crane in? They're not just sitting around waiting to respond to fire department stuff. Also, you have to have some redundancy with this equipment. So, yes, they probably have in their fleet a way to shuffle around and say, hey, this particular piece of equipment's out of service, but we have this one as a backup, or we can put extra staffing on this one because the other equipment's out. Fire trucks are not like if one breaks down, you go to Hertz over at the Driggs Airport and say, hey, I'd like to rent a 100-foot aerial piece of equipment, or I want to rent a Class A fire engine. That's not how it works. No one rents out fire equipment like that. Even big cities, they keep their old junk equipment around as spares. This stuff's too expensive to have just laying around to have spares. So that's one reason why you want that. If you want to go down the rabbit hole on current problems with fire apparatus, go read up on the Rev Group or watch the tapes from recent congressional hearings on fire trucks and the shortages. Look into the Pierce manufacturing. I believe it was Josh Hawley out of Missouri held their feet to the fire. There's some really interesting things going on around this Rev Group as it relates to being able to get fire equipment. I've heard some people say that it costs $40,000 to outfit a firefighter. I don't think that's true. One of the reasons cited was because they each have an SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. That equipment, as far as I know, in every fire department in the world is shared. So if a fire department has 100 employees, they might have 10 SCBAs. They're not each being issued an individual SCBA. That's very expensive equipment. It's very technical. There's a lot of maintenance and upkeep with it. They do get issued their own turnout gear, which is there's no way around that. So there's obviously a hard cost to that. As it relates to the money and the compensation with the fire department and why are we paying them so much, et cetera, there's a stat out there, and you can fact check me on this. The average firefighter nationwide, in US, dies within 5 years after retiring. Now that runs a gamut, depending when you retired and how you retired or whatever. But just know that the compensation a firefighter receives today, or a paramedic, because they're exposed to all kinds of nasty illnesses and people spit at them. You do CPR on someone with a gunshot wound. There's blood on. I mean, it's a hard show, and you get exposed to things that the average person doesn't. So part of that compensation today has to be able to cover you later in life along with the benefits package, presumptive cancer bills, etc. So when you're digging on them for how much you think they're getting paid, just consider every day they show up to work, they're shortening their life, whether it's cardiovascular injuries, heart attacks, strokes, physical injuries, orthopedic injuries, etc. Something else that I think people need to know, and I want to believe people are aware of this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The job of a firefighter is not all rainbows and unicorns. It's not all getting cats out of trees, and with few exceptions, such as a member of the general public stumbling upon a car accident on your way to work, you're never going to have to deal with untangling a half alive person out of a car that just hit another car at 60 miles an hour. You're not going to have to deal with disentangling a farmer out of a PTO shaft on a tractor. I'm trying to make the point that much like the police department, which is also grossly understaffed and underfunded, the job of a first responder is very unique. It's not fair to compare them to a clerical worker that works in a county building with the equivalent amount of years in the service. They're two different jobs. And if you don't like the job you have and you don't think you're being compensated fairly, you should have chosen a different career path or consider changing career paths if you're in a position to do so. Just know that our first responders have to see things, do things that the average public will never have to, and they should be compensated for that. Uh, so the community just voted to set up this new taxing district for recreation. I was personally opposed to it very strongly. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it should have been a priority right now, but the voters felt otherwise. I feel at this point in Teton County, you could put anything on the ballot to increase taxes, whether it's roads, schools, recreation, and this county loves taxes. They'll vote for it without even giving a second thought of what they're voting for or what the long-term implications of it are with just a little bit of information. It might just be a yard sign. Oh, vote for this. Okay, I'll vote for that. Or the yard sign is in a friend's yard. Well, if they're voting for it, I'll vote for it. That's a terrible way to think. Um, I've heard some people say we spend too much on the fire department. I think it's actually the opposite. Look at what you're paying now for this three-headed monster known as a recreation district compared to what you're paying in fire district taxes. Rough numbers, there's some people right now that are paying $500 every year to the taxing district for the fire department. You might be paying 250 for recreation. I'm not okay that we're spending 2 to 1 recreation with the fire department. I think that ratio should be closer to like 99 to 1. Like 99% of the money, for every $1,000 to spend for the fire department, we should be spending um $10 for the recreation district. Those numbers are lopsided. That's baked into the cake. I have no way of changing that. It's a ballot issue. So again, I just want to thank the chief for sitting down and taking his time off duty. I think there's going to be some further conversation about that. I've certainly offered it to get the word out about what's going on. Again, I had planned on talking about this a little bit later down the road, but this stuff's already out on the internet and things grow legs quickly on the internet and rumors spread and the war drums start banging. And I think there's an opportunity here to sit down and have a conversation with our community members and show and demonstrate the need of why we need to grow. You can't like what do we do? Wait until 26 homes burn down in a 5-year period and go, we should really put another firehouse at the north end. Do we need to have another 10 fatal accidents at the north end of the county before we go, wouldn't be a bad idea to have an engine company and an ambulance staffed up in the city of Teutonia so that we're 15 miles closer to the scene of the car accident. After our conversation, the analogy I kind of offered up, I said, man, I said, and this is not a dig at the fire department, it's just the reality. I said, the growth that needs to happen with the fire department and emergency services at large here is it's equivalent in my mind of growing an entire forest from seed with little or no water. Now we have the ability, we have the seed, we have the land to grow this, proverbial forest. It's the water, right? How are we going to get the water? Is it grants? Is it matching funds? Is it charitable donations? Is it angel investors? Is it selling pies at the carnival? Is it raising taxes? There's a lot of funding mechanisms here. I personally think that some of this can be accomplished by offsetting people's fire insurance taxes. Again, that's part of a bigger study because that will not impact everyone. If you live close to the firehouse in Driggs now and the taxes increase, you're probably not going to see as much of a decrease in your fire taxes as someone who lives at the north end of the county or maybe west of Victor, where they're a little bit further away from a fire department. So again, I hope that we'll get him and maybe some members of the department, maybe from their union, to come on this podcast and talk about some of these challenges and get this out there and help educate people. I know some of this is being discussed online right now. Those conversations very quickly go off rail and start talking about, the price of tea in China, and that's not what we're talking about. So I'm asking you to keep your eyes and ears open, think critically about this. There's going to be some documents circulating in the community. They're going to be using what I will call cherry pick data to paint a rosy picture of our situation here. I don't think our situation is rosy here. I think the fire department is doing the best they can with what they have, and they're treading water. I think some of these documents that you may come across are going to be used in an attempt to dissuade you from supporting a fully funded and built out fire department. I don't think if it comes to this, to compare us to being a resort town fire department, because we do have some resort towns within the county, but the area of coverage is so massive. We're not just the downtown Jackson area and then the rest of Teton County. And, they have multiple fire departments in Jackson, just to use them as a comparison. Um, so just bear that in mind that this department is actually for the entire county. It's not We're not asking, I'm not asking to consider how do we fund out a better fire department just for the city of Driggs. So when these conversations do come up, and you're looking at things like fire department staffing and resources, you have to make decisions with how you vote, right? Everyone has a vote on this stuff and where we live, which I think is great. You have to think what's best for our community, our local conditions. It's partially unfair, in my opinion, to compare Teton County, Idaho, to a county that's 200 or 304 miles away and only use home prices or population as a common denominator. Every municipality is unique. Does every municipality 200 miles away have a highway that goes right through it with highway speeds? Maybe there are highways in the adjoining county and it just skirts them and they're an off ramp to get to there. Every place is unique. Every layout of every community is different, so just bear that in mind. In closing, I'd ask you this: get involved, show up. We have a wonderful opportunity in the United States to participate in our system of government. Not everyone in the world enjoys that. Some places, the idea of bringing up a public meeting would get you thrown off a building, quite literally. Even if you aren't an elective office holder, you should not be sitting this out. I think it's your duty, your responsibility, and your obligation to participate in some way. I want to thank you for listening. Your support is appreciated. If you'd like to reach the show, again, you can email us at the Isak Clemens Show at gmail.com. It's the same spelling as the Rumble podcast. Stay safe and tuned in for more and have a wonderful day.